What if I told you there's a symbol older than almost any alphabet, etched into the stone temples of ancient Egypt, that holds within it a map, not just of the human body, but of consciousness itself? This isn't just another myth. The Eye of Horus, so often seen on pendants, tattoos, or conspiracy documentaries, is not merely a relic of Egyptian art. It is a code. A spiritual cipher. And those who understood it weren't just priests or pharaohs, they were initiates into an ancient science of awakening. You see, long before modern neuroscience, and long before any modern religions, the ancient Egyptians were already mapping what they called the Ka, the Ba, and the Ak, the layers of the soul. They weren't worshipping idols in the way we're often taught. They were decoding reality itself. And at the center of that decoding process, was the eye. But not just any eye. The Eye of Horus is said to have been torn apart, shattered, and then healed, a symbolic death and resurrection. But why? Why has this one eye become the centerpiece of so many esoteric traditions? Why does it appear in modern medicine, in the pineal gland's shape, in secret societies, in the art of awakening across time? In this video, we are going to peel back the veil. We'll explore the mystical origins of the Eye of Horus and the spiritual warfare embedded in its myth. We'll uncover how the shape of the eye matches parts of the human brain, and what that means about our hidden divine faculties. We'll decode how each part of the eye correlates with senses, perception, and even states of consciousness. And finally, you'll learn how to apply these ancient truths in your daily spiritual practice to awaken inner vision, what the ancients called the eye that sees the unseen. This isn't just about symbols. This is about transformation. So ask yourself, what would happen if you could awaken the eye that sees beyond illusion? And more importantly, what might it reveal to you? To truly understand the Eye of Horus, we must step out of the modern mindset and re-enter the world of ancient Kemet, the original name for Egypt, which means, the Black Land, referring to the fertile soil of the Nile and, more esoterically, to the primordial darkness from which all life emerges. In this ancient world, symbolism was not decoration, it was technology. Sacred images were more than metaphor, they were instructions for aligning the soul with divine law. And among all the symbols carved into temple walls, chiseled into stone sarcophagi, and painted onto the tombs of kings, the Eye of Horus held a power unlike any other. But who was Horus? Horus was not merely a falcon-headed deity of the sky. In the mythos of Egypt, he was the son of Isis and Osiris, the divine child born after the murder and dismemberment of his father, Osiris, by the dark god Set. Horus' story is not just myth, it is an allegory of spiritual rebirth. His left eye was torn out during a cosmic battle with Set, and then miraculously restored by the god Thoth, the master of wisdom and magic. This eye, the Ujat or Wedjat eye, came to symbolize healing, restoration, and spiritual vision. But it wasn't merely symbolic. It was believed to hold power, an energetic force that could protect, reveal, and heal. The word Ujat itself means to be made whole. To the initiate, the Eye of Horus was a sacred diagram, like a spiritual blueprint of human consciousness. It was used in rituals, meditation, and healing practices. Amulets in the shape of the eye were placed over the dead to guide them through the afterlife. But far more than that, it was believed to be a map of perception, of how the soul interfaces with the material and spiritual worlds. The ancient Egyptians were not merely constructing tombs and temples, they were encoding universal truths into their architecture, their mythology, and their symbolism. The Eye of Horus, they believed, was not just a passive image, but a living archetype, alive in each human being. Esoterically, the two eyes of Horus represented two forms of vision. The right eye, associated with Ra, the sun, was the eye of reason, daylight, logic, and outward perception. The left eye, the Eye of Horus, was the lunar eye, representing intuition, inner knowing, and perception beyond the veil. The ancients taught that only when both eyes are open, only when inner and outer sight are united, can one truly see. This philosophy is echoed across traditions. The Hindu Ajna Chakra, or third eye, the Christian single eye Jesus spoke of in Matthew 6 verse 22, the Buddhist concept of vipassana or clear seeing, all hint at this deeper mode of perception. But the Egyptians didn't just philosophize about it, they encoded it. The Eye of Horus was not abstract. It was drawn with precise proportions, with 6 distinct parts, each representing one of the human senses, and each a fraction of a mystical whole. And what's even more astonishing is this: when modern scientists mapped the midbrain, they found that the Eye of Horus, when overlaid on a cross-section of the brain, corresponds almost exactly to the thalamus, corpus callosum, and the pineal gland. The ancients somehow knew that the center of inner vision was located at the geometric core of the brain. So the question must be asked: how did they know? And if the eye is truly a map of our inner spiritual anatomy, then what else might it teach us, about perception, about consciousness, and about awakening? In the next section, we will decode the Eye of Horus part by part, unveiling what each element represents and how it can be used to reawaken the ancient faculties of divine perception. The Eye of Horus is far more than an ancient emblem, it's a metaphysical map. A key that unlocks the hidden structure of perception, awareness, and spiritual insight. While it may seem like simple artwork to the untrained eye, to initiates of ancient wisdom, it was a diagram of the soul's interface with the material and immaterial worlds. Traditionally, the eye is composed of 6 distinct elements, each one corresponding to a different human sense: sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and thought. But in Egyptian esoteric thought, these weren't merely physical faculties, they were sacred gateways, channels through which consciousness flows and perceives both the seen and the unseen. Let's begin with the largest and most central part of the eye, the arching shape that forms the upper brow. This element was associated with thought. In ancient Egypt, thought was seen as an active, generative force, closer to what we might now call vibration or frequency. The curved shape closely resembles the corpus callosum in the brain, the structure that unites our 2 hemispheres. This suggests that the Eye of Horus is not simply a symbol of vision, but of cognitive and spiritual integration, the union of duality. Next is the pupil, the dark center of the eye. This, naturally, represented sight. But not just physical seeing, true sight, spiritual vision. The Egyptians taught that to see was to perceive truth, to witness the underlying order of the cosmos. In their language, perception was synonymous with comprehension. Sight, in this sense, was the foundation of wisdom. Extending from the side of the eye is a spiral form, reminiscent of the inner ear's cochlea. This shape represented hearing. In the Egyptian mystery schools, sound was sacred. Spoken words, known as hekau, or words of power, were believed to shape reality. To hear was to be initiated, to receive sacred knowledge directly into the soul. Above the pupil is a short curved line, symbolizing smell. Although modern culture tends to overlook this sense, the Egyptians considered it vital for spiritual sensitivity. Incense, fragrant oils, and aromatic resins weren't simply ceremonial, they were believed to activate higher states of awareness and invite divine presence. Below the eye is a tongue-like stroke, gently curving downward. This part of the symbol represented taste. But again, this goes beyond the physical act of eating. Taste symbolized the ability to discern, spiritually, what is nourishing and what is toxic, both in the physical and energetic sense. Lastly, beneath the eye lies a teardrop shape, associated with touch. It's the most grounded of all the senses and was revered as a method of direct energetic transmission. In Egyptian rituals, touch was not casual, it was sacred. The laying on of hands, the anointing with oils, the activation of divine objects through contact, all were seen as acts that transferred and awakened spiritual energy. Now here's something extraordinary. When modern anatomy maps the midbrain in profile and overlays the Eye of Horus upon it, something uncanny emerges. Each of these 6 elements of the eye aligns with actual anatomical structures in the human brain, particularly around the pineal gland, thalamus, and corpus callosum. For instance, the area representing sight aligns with the optic thalamus. The area associated with hearing overlays the cochlea. And most importantly, the central curved shape linked to thought wraps around the pineal gland, which many mystical traditions recognize as the gateway to inner vision or the third eye. How could the Egyptians have known this? Thousands of years before MRIs or brain scans, they created a symbolic image that mirrors the very architecture of inner perception. The answer may lie in experience, not technology. The high initiates of Egypt were not theorists, they were explorers of consciousness. They accessed states of awareness that allowed them to perceive these inner truths directly, without machines. The Eye of Horus is a visual record of that inner science. But there is one more layer to this mystery. These 6 components, 6 senses, 6 sacred channels, were understood to form a near-complete system. And yet, the Egyptians taught that something was always missing. A final piece. A hidden element that could not be drawn, measured, or fully understood. They referred to this as the divine remainder, the fragment that connects us to the ineffable, the part that cannot be named, only experienced. In the next section, we'll explore that missing piece, the mystery behind the restoration of the eye, the pineal gland as the seat of inner vision, and what it truly means to be made whole. In the myth, the Eye of Horus was torn apart during a cosmic struggle. Horus, in battle with Set, the god of chaos, had his left eye damaged, broken into pieces. It was only later that Thoth, the god of wisdom and sacred knowledge, gathered the fragments and restored the eye, returning it to its full power. This was not just a tale of divine drama, it was a parable of consciousness. Each broken piece of the eye symbolized a fragmented sense of self. When humans descend into material reality, we often forget our wholeness. Our senses become dulled, our awareness scattered. We live, as Plato said, asleep, dreaming we are awake. But the ancient Egyptians believed that we are meant to remember, to restore what was shattered. That final restoration, the act of making the eye whole again, represents the awakening of higher vision. And at the center of that vision is the mysterious pineal gland. This tiny organ, shaped like a pine cone and nestled deep within the brain, has been revered by mystics across cultures. The French philosopher Descartes called it the seat of the soul. The yogis of India referred to its energy center as the Ajna chakra, the third eye. And in ancient Egyptian art, when you overlay the Eye of Horus on a cross-section of the human brain, the spiral curl, representing hearing, lines up with the cochlea, while the thought arc and the sight center curve around the exact region of the pineal gland. Coincidence? Or confirmation of an ancient truth? Let's go deeper. The pineal gland is unique. It is light-sensitive, even though it sits in complete darkness within the skull. In some lower vertebrates, it functions as a literal third eye, complete with a lens and retina. In humans, it governs the production of melatonin, which regulates circadian rhythm, sleep cycles, and, according to some studies, dream states and altered consciousness. Mystics believe this gland could be activated, awakened through discipline, meditation, breath work, and spiritual purity. When the pineal gland is stimulated, it is said to produce DMT, a naturally occurring compound linked to powerful visions, mystical experiences, and contact with non-ordinary realms of being. In this light, the myth of the eye being broken and restored becomes more than a story, it becomes a map for the initiate. The 6 senses, the fragments, are trained, refined, and purified through spiritual practice. The seeker journeys through the senses, mastering each in turn. But it is only when these energies are reunited at the center, the symbolic pineal, that true sight is restored. That is when the eye is no longer just an eye. It becomes the eye that sees beyond, the eye of wisdom, the eye of eternity. This inner eye allows you to perceive patterns, energies, truths hidden behind appearances. It is the gateway between the worlds, between the physical and the spiritual, the seen and the unseen, the illusion and the real. And remember the mystery of the missing piece. Ancient Egyptians believed that even when the eye is restored, there remains a final aspect that cannot be known with the mind, only experienced with the soul. This is the divine spark, the unknowable source from which all perception arises. It is the part of you that cannot be dissected, labeled, or confined. It is pure being, and it lives beyond form. In this way, the Eye of Horus is more than a symbol of protection or power, it is a living glyph of human potential. It tells the story of descent into fragmentation and the sacred return to wholeness. It is an invitation to awaken, not just to see the world, but to see through it. To perceive reality with the eye that never sleeps. And so, we arrive at the edge of practice. Because this ancient knowledge was never meant to remain theory. It was meant to be used. In the next section, we'll explore how you can begin to awaken your own inner eye, through simple, powerful practices drawn from both ancient Egyptian ritual and modern esoteric science. Knowledge that is not lived becomes dust on the shelf of the soul. The Egyptians understood this well. Their temples were not built just to impress the eye, they were living schools. The Eye of Horus was not just studied, it was activated. It served as a guide for the initiate to move from fragmented perception to unified vision, from outer illusion to inner truth. And you can walk that same path. Let's begin with the foundation, refining your senses. The 6 parts of the eye each symbolize a gateway. To awaken the eye fully, these gateways must be cleared of distraction, dullness, and distortion. Each sense becomes not just a way of experiencing the world, but a tool for spiritual transformation. 1. Thought, cultivate the observer. The central arc of the eye, associated with thought, is the throne of inner stillness. To awaken this faculty, begin with daily inner observation. Practice, set aside 5 minutes a day to simply watch your thoughts, not to control or suppress them, but to witness them like clouds passing across the sky. This trains the mind to stop identifying with every impulse, and instead begins awakening the quiet eye that sees beneath thought. 2. Sight, gaze beyond the form. Visual input dominates our lives, but the Egyptians taught that true seeing means perceiving essence, not just form. Practice, try soft gazing meditation. Light a candle in a dark room. Sit comfortably and gaze at the flame, not staring or focusing hard, but letting your vision relax. Over time, let your focus fade inward, use the external flame to awaken your internal light. This sharpens not just eyesight, but inner vision. 3. Hearing, listen in stillness. The ancient priests of Egypt used chants, mantras, and silence to attune their hearing to the divine. Practice, begin each day with 1 minute of silence. Not just quiet, but active listening. Close your eyes and allow every sound, near and far, to arise without judgment. Over time, you'll begin hearing the space between sounds, the rhythm beneath noise. This is where the soul speaks. 4. Smell, invoke memory and presence. Scent bypasses logic and strikes the emotional core instantly. Egyptians knew this, using sacred oils to anchor states of consciousness. Practice, use aromatherapy with intention. Choose essential oils like frankincense, lotus, or sandalwood. Inhale deeply before meditation or journaling. Let the aroma act as a bridge between body and spirit, grounding your presence while awakening memory of deeper realms. 5. Taste, discern what nourishes. Spiritual taste is about discernment, what you take in, what you allow to become part of your being. Practice, once per day, practice mindful eating. Choose one small piece of food, fruit, bread, or even a sip of tea. Eat it with full presence. Chew slowly. Taste fully. Ask inwardly, is this nourishing me? The more conscious you become of physical taste, the sharper your energetic discernment becomes. 6. Touch, feel the energy beneath the surface. The final gateway is the hand, the skin, the tactile world. But behind every touch is a field of energy. Practice, rub your hands together quickly for 15 seconds and then hold them a few inches apart. Feel the subtle pressure, the warmth, the vibration. This is life force. With practice, you can use your hands to scan and even adjust energy in your body. The pineal practice, awakening the inner eye. At the center of it all lies the pineal gland, the gateway between worlds. Activating it doesn't require rituals from forgotten temples. It begins with stillness, breath, and focused awareness. Practice. Each night before sleep, lie flat on your back. Close your eyes and bring your attention to the space between your eyebrows, the region of the third eye. Breathe deeply. Imagine a gentle pulse of light there, faint at first, then gradually expanding. You're not forcing it, just noticing. Over time, this inner attention awakens dormant circuitry, and dreams may become more vivid, insights more spontaneous. Common challenges and guidance. Doubt and impatience, ancient faculties awaken slowly. The key is consistency, not intensity. Mental chatter, let it be. Don't fight your mind. Bring attention gently back to the practice. No results, this work is subtle. It builds like a tide, invisible at first, but over time it transforms your entire way of being. The Egyptians didn't hand down scrolls of quick fixes. They transmitted paths, timeless, powerful, and alive. By walking that path, sense by sense, you slowly rebuild the eye. Not just symbolically, but energetically. And when the eye opens fully, it sees not the world as it appears, but as it truly is. The Eye of Horus is not just a myth, not merely a symbol carved into ancient walls. It is a map. A key. A living guide passed down through the silence of temples, through the whispers of symbols, through the very architecture of your own mind and soul. You now know that the eye represents more than sight, it represents perception. A sacred process of returning to wholeness. The 6 parts of the eye correspond not only to your senses, but to 6 spiritual gates. And the center, the pineal, the seat of the hidden light, is the doorway through which the soul remembers who it truly is. When you begin to observe your thoughts. When you listen with presence. When you taste with reverence, feel energy through touch, breathe in sacred aroma, and gaze through the flame of your own consciousness. You are not just practicing. You are restoring the eye. You are becoming again what the ancients once were. A living temple of divine awareness. The mystery of the missing piece, the fragment that could not be measured, is you. It is your journey. Your awakening. Your return to the source. So the question is no longer what is the Eye of Horus. The real question is, are you ready to open it within yourself? If this message stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Revisit the practices. Explore the symbols. Listen in silence. Watch your inner world. And most of all, trust that what you seek is already within you. The eye was never outside you. It was only ever waiting to be opened.